Hey folks, tonight we're plunging into the smoky, sword-swinging world of Viking bedrooms. And trust me, it's every bit as wild and tangled as you're picturing. Before we wade chest-deep into sheepskins, honor codes, and some seriously questionable hygiene, let's ground ourselves with a reality check. You probably wouldn't survive this. If you were suddenly dropped into Viking-era Scandinavia, odds are you'd be stabbed, sold, or married off before the sun sets. Not necessarily in that order. So, before you settle in, take a second to like this post and follow if you're genuinely into what I'm sharing here. While you're at it, drop your city and the current time in the comments. I'm always curious to know where in the world you're joining from. Now, dim the lights, maybe switch on a fan for that gentle background hum, and let's ease into this journey together. Picture yourself standing at the threshold of a longhouse. It's nighttime, and the air reeks of firewood, fermented fish, and sweaty wool. Inside, it's all shadows and flickering torchlight. A dog growls lazily as you step over the threshold. The warmth hits you first, thick, smoky heat rising from the central hearth, followed by the noise. Voices, some low, some loud, mixed with laughter, snoring, and babies crying. Beneath it all, there's a buzzing hum, the pulse of life unfolding, love sparking, sometimes even against someone's will. To your left, a couple is tangled in a straw bed, wooden slats creaking as they shift with a casualness that makes you instantly awkward, but no one else seems to care. Sex in the Viking world isn't exactly private. Not in a longhouse where 3 generations sleep in one room. There are no proper bedrooms, just curtained-off corners if you're lucky, or a carved wooden screen if you're wealthy. Otherwise, people do what they need to do, quietly or not. Here, sex is tied to survival, reputation, and power. Vikings aren't shy about it, but they're not lawless either. Their sexual norms are strict in their own brutal way. A man can sleep with his thrall, a slave woman, and that's normal. But accuse him of being the woman in bed, of being on the receiving end, and you've attacked his honor. That's the kind of insult that could get you stabbed through the liver in front of a cheering crowd. Speaking of crowds, your arrival coincides with a homecoming. A group of warriors has just returned from a raid, sweaty, blood-stained, and brimming with bravado. Raiding is more than violence, it's a social ladder. Bring back gold and epic stories, and suddenly women start noticing you. Marriage might come later, but tonight, anything goes. You overhear a warrior boasting, not about kills, but about how many foreign women he bedded. His friends hoot and slam mugs of mead. An older woman eyes him and mutters something under her breath. You can't catch the words, but her meaning is clear. She's unimpressed. Viking women, you learn, have more power than you might expect, especially in the bedroom. Sure, there's a heavy bias toward men, particularly landowning men, but women can own property, divorce their husbands, and reclaim dowries if wronged. If a man fails in bed or publicly humiliates her, she can drag him to the thing, their court, and people will listen. A tale floats around the hearth tonight, half funny, half horrifying. A woman named Halfdan once accused her husband of impotence during a feast in front of everyone. He challenged her to prove it, and she did, with witnesses, a lot of mead, and a story that left the poor guy's reputation in tatters. Don't get too cozy in your corner, though. An old man is leering at you, trying to gauge your social rank. Hair too clean? You're probably a slave or a visitor. That matters because sex across social classes isn't just private, it's a public statement. A chieftain bedding a slave girl? Expected. A slave boy catching a warrior's daughter's eye? Dangerous. The fire pops, making you jump. Nearby, a young couple whispers. She giggles, tugs his beard, and glances at her father, who's passed out in a meat-drenched snore. They slip behind a hanging sheepskin, and soon it's rustling softly. You're not sure where to look. Let's pause to appreciate something weird and wonderful. Viking pillow talk is real, and it's poetic. Literally, a man might woo a woman with skaldic verse, complex, alliterative poetry packed with gods, heroic battles, and some not-so-subtle sex metaphors. You catch one line tonight about laying the oar across the stormy fjord. You'll never see boats the same way again. But even in this heady atmosphere, there's danger, not just from jealous lovers or overprotective fathers, but from words. In Viking culture, insults often target sexuality. Call a man urgy, unmanly, implying he's sexually passive, and you've dropped a verbal nuke. It's the kind of accusation that ends in bloodshed. You start to realize that sex and violence aren't opposites here. They're two sides of the same scruffy coin. The weirdest part of your first night in a Viking longhouse. Nobody finds any of this strange. The sounds, the smells, the open desire, the strict codes, it's all normal, expected, alive. These aren't horned-helmeted caricatures. They're people breathing, touching, and messing up just like us. You curl up near the fire, hunting for a patch of sheepskin that isn't damp. The couple behind the curtain is quiet now. A baby hiccups in its sleep. Someone farts. Someone laughs. Outside, the wind howls over the fjord. Tomorrow, you'll hear about gods who seduce by shape-shifting and women who cast lust spells with carved bones. But tonight, you sleep among real Vikings in their tangled, messy, deeply human glory. You wake to the smell of ash and smoked fish, your back aching from a mattress of straw, wooden planks, and, if you're lucky, some reindeer hide. The longhouse is quieter now. Most people are out starting their daily tasks, leaving the place dim and ghostly. A few figures linger by the dying hearth, including an old woman humming tunelessly while stirring a pot. But there's another sound, too, a low, steady, almost melodic chant, and it's not coming from the kitchen. You follow the sound outside into crisp morning air, your breath puffing before you. The village sits on the edge of a fjord, steep cliffs hugging both sides like ancient guardians. The water gleams like obsidian. Near the shoreline, people are gathered in a circle. You approach, careful not to slip on frost-slick stones. In the center stand a man, painted with red ochre, holding a carved staff topped with a bird skull. He's chanting to Freyr. This isn't just morning worship, it's a fertility rite. When it comes to Viking gods and sex, buckle up for the weirdest theology class of your life. Let's start with Freyr, god of prosperity, sunshine, peace, and yes, sex. His name means Lord, and he's often depicted with an erect phallus, which Viking artists carved in proud detail. Freyr embodies male fertility, and offerings to him range from sheaves of grain to, let's be honest, bodily fluids. His sister Freya, though, steals the spotlight when it comes to lust and love. Goddess of beauty, war, and sorcery, she rides a chariot pulled by cats and owns a magical falcon feather cloak. She's desired by nearly every being in Norse myth. Gods, dwarves, giants, mortals. Freya doesn't just represent sexuality, she commands it. Some stories say she slept with 4 dwarves to claim her prized necklace, Brisingamen. Others claim she wept red gold tears when her husband are vanished. Is she a romantic, an empowered goddess, or a chaotic icon? Probably all three. Norse mythology doesn't stop at steamy. It goes fully off the rails. Take Loki, the trickster god. He once turned into a mare, got seduced by a stallion, and gave birth to an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir. Not adopted, gave birth. In another tale, he disguises himself as a woman to crash a wedding. Gender roles? Fluid. Boundaries? Optional. The Vikings' spiritual world mirrors their real one in strange, twisted ways. Their gods break rules, cross gender lines, and indulge in pleasures and taboos, giving humans a kind of cosmic permission within reason. Back at the fertility rite, the red ochre man thrusts his staff into the ground, murmurs something guttural, and a young couple steps forward, touching foreheads. The villagers watch, not with lust or embarrassment, but reverence. This is sacred. The couple is asking Freya's blessing to conceive. It hits you. Sex here isn't just about fun or dominance. It's about survival. Every child strengthens the clan, ensuring someone will till the soil or wield an axe when you're too old to fight. You drift from the ceremony to a small wooden shrine shaped like a hut, carved with animal faces and spiraling runes. Inside are tiny figures, some human-shaped, some blatantly phallic, one comically oversized. Someone's got a sense of humor, or maybe it's protective. Fertility charms were common. You learned from a chatty old man feeding chickens. Phallic amulets weren't dirty. They were practical like a rabbit's foot, just more anatomically specific. Warriors even carried small frere carvings for vigor, he says with a grin, not just for battle. Not everyone agrees on what's sacred, though. A younger man spits near the shrine, muttering about old gods and animal lust. You later learn he's a quiet Christian convert, a growing trend as traders and missionaries infiltrate Scandinavia. To him, the open celebration of sex and fertility is heathen nonsense, dangerous, even. This tension is just starting to simmer. For now, most villagers cling to the old ways. Rites, charms, myths, and all. Sex is holy, powerful, normal. The body and spirit aren't enemies. They're tangled like roots under a snow-covered tree. The god stories aren't just entertainment. They teach what's allowed, what's risky, and how much shame or glory your bedroom choices can bring. You overhear a woman telling children a toned-down tale of Thor dressing as a bride to retrieve his stolen hammer. The kids laugh, learning that disguise can be brave, love can be absurd, and sex can be funny. As the sun dips, casting a golden haze, you head back to the longhouse, still thinking about Freya's tears, Loki's horse baby, and that couple's open plea for divine blessing. There's something freeing in it, raw, human, and a little weird. Tomorrow, you'll explore when passion meets politics, when love, marriage, and warfare collide like storming ships on a midnight sea. For now, crawl into that scratchy bed, wrap yourself in slightly fishy fur, and let sleep come. More stories await. You're jolted awake, not by sunlight, but by angry, insistent male shouting. Groggy and heart-pounding, you realize a full-on domestic dispute is unfolding outside the longhouse. A small crowd has gathered in the central yard. You shuffle out barefoot, cloak dragging like a sleepy ghost. Two families face off, tension thick. The cause? A marriage, or rather, a marriage about to go very wrong. At the center is a girl, maybe 15 or 16, thin, freckled, wrapped in an oversized cloak. Her father argues with a man twice her age, a trader from a nearby village who's either her fiancé or her kidnapper, depending on who you ask. This isn't unusual. Viking marriage isn't typically about romance. It's about alliances, power, land, livestock, and ensuring the family name survives frostbite and sword fights. The girl's mother tries to speak, but the men talk over her. No surprise, Viking women have rights, but in negotiations like this, patriarchy rules. Elders step in to mediate, and you're expected to watch because marriages are public contracts. When they go wrong, everyone wants a front row seat. The betrothal was arranged over winter, sealed with gifts, silver arm rings, a fox fur-lined cloak, 2 cows, and, crucially, his sword. Not for fighting, but as a symbol. The groom's sword represents his ability to protect and provide. The bride's, from her father's house, ties her to her ancestry. Romantic? Not really. Symbolic? Deeply. But here's the twist. The girl doesn't want to marry, and she has leverage. Viking law lets a woman reject a match before it's finalized, especially if the marital bed hasn't been shared. Red-faced but steady, she insists no bed has been touched. The crowd murmurs, "This just got interesting." Then you hear it, "Berkop," literally bride purchase. The Old Norse word for wedding roots in buying the bride. Don't rush to modern judgments. It wasn't outright slavery. The bride price was wealth transfer, compensating her family for losing a laborer, daughter, future mother. Still, in a world where women can divorce and own land, they're often assets in big decisions. Viking courtship is complex. Not all marriages were arranged, but even love matches involve negotiations, social status, dowries, family approval. Sometimes, things skipped straight to BRRA with a Q10, bride stealing. An old man, cackling over mead, brags about his youth. "We took 3 sisters from up north. Married 2, sold the 3rd to the Joms Vikings." Truth or drunken embellishment? Hard to say, but the practice was real. Some Viking men abducted women during raids, claiming them as wives. Some marriages stuck, Others were little more than legalized enslavement. Yet, sagas tell of kidnapped women rising to influence as chieftains' wives or mothers of powerful lineages. Harsh beginnings, surprising outcomes. The elders reach a verdict. The marriage is off, for now. The girl's family must return the gifts, and the traitor must find another bride, preferably one who won't threaten to stab him with the ceremonial sword. The crowd disperses, half annoyed, half entertained. Later, you're invited to a wedding feast that does go as planned. The longhouse is transformed with pine branches and straw god figures. The bride's unbound hair, a rare ritual sight, shines as she radiates nervous excitement. The groom carries her over the threshold with a theatrical grunt, symbolizing their new life. There's dancing, drinking, toast to the gods, and a blessing from Gua, a local priest. Then comes the awkward part, hints that it's time to seal the deal. Sometimes, the community waits outside the bed curtain. Sometimes, there's a ceremonial bedding with witnesses to ensure consummation, making the marriage legally binding. Romantic? Not quite. Marriages had to be sexually functional, but lack of compatibility could be grounds for divorce. Sagas feature scorned wives mocking husbands' bedroom failures with metaphors about fish, frost, or limp spears, subtle. Did Vikings marry for love? Absolutely. While many unions were strategic, love matches existed, full of passion and loyalty, more like revenge dramas than rom-coms. As the feast continues, you're surrounded by singing, hand-holding, and drunken poetry attempts. A man with a crooked nose tries to woo you with a verse about a swan as white as your thighs. He slurs, but the effort's sweet. You drift asleep by the fire, full bellies and fading celebrations sound around you. A marriage both families and both people actually wanted. You'll discover how sexual accusations turn into weapons, how insults and court cases shape the Viking bedroom as much as love or lust. For now, let your dreams drift to fox fur cloaks, strong-willed brides, an oath sealed not just with swords but with stubborn hearts. Morning creeps in, heavy and slow, like molasses over cold stone. You're nursing a hangover from mead, salted fish, and secondhand drama when someone nudges you awake with a boot. Not angry, more like, hey, you want to see this. Groaning, you sit up, spine cracking, tongue dry as wool. Outside, a group heads to the thing, the local assembly. Shivering as the wind cuts through the valley, you follow, your stomach churning, not just from last night's feast, but from a sense of looming awkwardness. Today's case involves a public accusation of an insult, but not just any insult. This is the Viking equivalent of dragging someone's reputation into the dirt, possibly forever. It's about sex, always about sex. The accused, a flax-haired farmer named Eiríkur, stands arms crossed, jaw set, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. The accuser, Bjorn, older, ballier, and loud, puffs out his chest with the swagger of someone who knows the crowd's on his side. He let men ride him like a mare. Bjorn growls, pointing at Eiríkur like he's about to hurl something. You blink. Did he just say that? Yes. Welcome to Viking legal insults, where calling a man soft isn't about emotional vulnerability, but accusing him of being sexually passive, a direct assault on his masculinity. The accusation isn't about Eiríkur being gay. That concept doesn't translate neatly here. It's about him acting like a woman, and that's the real sting. Masculinity is currency, and sex is how it's measured. Accusing a man of being on the receiving end, especially with another man, is saying he's failed at dominance, his core duty. Vikings didn't police who you slept with as much as how you did it. Roles mattered more than genders. The thing is buzzing. People love a juicy case, especially one involving metaphorical or not-so-metaphorical bottoming. A few boys giggle behind their sleeves. An old woman nods, muttering figures. The law speaker steps forward, raising a carved staff to hush the crowd. His face is lined like tree bark, his voice dry gravel. He recites the legal definition of an, listing phrases that qualify as fighting words, calling someone argy, unmanly, accusing them of cowardice in bed, or saying they're weak, submissive, or gasp. hairless in the wrong places. A fringe fact emerges. Vikings sometimes carved runes on wooden posts, often shaped like a man with an exaggerated, downward-pointing phallus, and left them on someone's land. These instang, or insult poles, were serious business. Not just pranks, but curse-adjacent, theatrical social shaming. Place one on someone's property, and you'd better run. Back to Bjorn Eiríkur. There's a twist. Eiríkur claims he never said it, and accuses Bjorn of slander. It's Viking daytime drama with sky-high stakes. If Eirikyr's found guilty of he could lose his honor, property, or be outlawed, cast out of society. If Bjorn's lying, same deal. The thing deliberates. Witnesses are called. A young man says he heard Eiríkur say something similar, but he was drunk and unsure. A woman swears Eirikyr's exact words were, Bjorn couldn't fight his way out of goat pen. Insulting but not sexual. The debate becomes a lecture on sexual slander, and you learn more than expected. For instance, a man could be accused of seer, sorcery, if he practiced female magic, which carried sexual connotations. Sorcerers were seen as penetrated by spirits. Interpret that as you will. The assembly votes. No conclusive proof. Eiríkur walks away, red-faced but free. Bjorn curses under his breath. The crowd disperses, satisfied after a scandalous episode of communal gossip. What sticks with you is how seriously Vikings take words. Sex isn't just physical, it's verbal, social, weaponized. An insult can ruin someone more thoroughly than a sword. That evening, you sit by the hearth with women spinning wool and swapping stories. Men get so upset about being called soft. One laughs, but half wouldn't last a day with what we endure. They share a tale of a woman from another village who accused her ex-husband of failing to satisfy her, taking it to the thing with a verse ending. His sword lies sleeping in its sheath. The women cackle. Another tells of a man settling an accusation not with a duel, but public humiliation, shaving his rival's beard while he slept, stealing his pants, and tying a dried cod to his belt. Let the village see what really hangs between his legs, she says, wiping a tear of laughter. You admire the savage creativity. Viking society, steeped in violence and strict codes, also allows wit, trickery, and comedy that turns enemies into punchlines. As night deepens, the longhouse glows soft gold, shadows dancing on rafters. You settle into your spot, reflecting on how reputations are brittle, words sharp as blades. What you say, especially behind someone's back, can change everything. Tomorrow, you'll explore Viking magic, lust runes, love charms, spells to draw someone to your bed or make them regret it. For now, sleep calls, heavy and slow. Let the fires hum you into dreams where insults bite, verses sting, and every whispered word could shift your saga. You wake to charred herbs and the unsettling scent of burnt animal hair. The longhouse is nearly empty, ash clinging to the air like mist. A girl with tangled braids, carrying bundles, motions you to follow without a word. Outside, the gray, cold day buzzes with activity. People gather in a wide circle, murmuring, avoiding the woman in the center, a vulva. She's draped in cloaks adorned with feathers, bones, and stitched runes, her staff carved with writhing figures and capped with amber that glows like flame. At her feet, burnt herbs, juniper, maybe, and something that might have been goat. This is a seer ritual, and you've arrived for the juicy part. Viking magic isn't just about seeing the future or cursing enemies. It can mess with love, sex, and occasionally farm animals. More on that later. The vulva chants, her voice low, rhythmic, hypnotic. She holds a hazel wand inscribed with runes, dips it in blood, and draws symbols in the air. A young woman steps forward, flushed, nervous, clutching a lock of hair and a straw-entwined figure. You're witnessing a Viking lust spell. Folklore says love magic could spark desire, inspire longing, or break couples apart. The woman whispers a name. The vulva nods solemnly. The ritual is poetic, movements precise. At its peak, the straw figure is set aflame, smoke spiraling upward, carrying a silent wish. Whether the spell's target will fall head over heels is anyone's guess, but the crowd's expressions show no one takes this lightly. Love magic is powerful, dangerous, morally gray. It can backfire if the gods disapprove. Runes, you learn, weren't just an alphabet. They held power. Someone shows you a whalebone etched with personal runes to attract a lover. Some inscriptions are blunt. One on a Bergen stick reads, "Kiss me, I'm hot for you." Another on a drinking horn says, "The bearer is ready and able." A fringe fact, Vikings believed the right runes, body parts, and incantations could seduce or repel. Spells used ground bones, menstrual blood, or clothing. One intense love spell involved tying a live beetle into a lover's hair while they slept. Romantic, right? These spells weren't just about attraction, but control, bending another's will, a big deal in a culture valuing honor and autonomy. Manipulating desire was spiritual trespassing, and failed spells causing humiliation or madness could shame entire families. A young man swears he was targeted by such a charm, couldn't stop thinking of her, dreamed of her nightly. "When I turned her down, I got boils." His friend laughs, but his eyes are serious. "I still have scars." Magic had weight, risk, consequence. Later, in a smaller house, an herbalist midwife shows you a birch bark love charm, folded with hair and sealed with wax. "My grandmother used it to win my grandfather," she says. "It worked for 20 years. Then he died falling off a pig cart." She hands you a stone carved with an upside-down tree-like symbol. Don't use it. Just hold it when you miss someone. There's something human in this, wanting to be seen, desired, connected, even in a brutal world of steel and blood. People carved symbols and whispered names into the dark, hoping for a response. Scholars debate how common this magic was. Were erotic rituals widespread or exaggerated by later Christian writers to vilify pagans? Some say Norse magic's erotic elements were symbolic for storytelling, not daily life. Others argue sex and power were so linked that controlling one through the other was inevitable. The truth lies in between, where bones whisper secrets and runes hide double meanings. Vikings didn't separate body and soul. Desire was sacred, risky, a force to respect. That night, as wind howls like wolves, the longhouse dims to an emberlit hum. You lie awake, thinking of the girl who burned a straw figure for love. Did it work? Did he feel a flutter in his chest today? Or is he cursing her name, wondering why it haunts him? Tomorrow, you'll explore social classes, how lines between free men and thralls shaped love, lust, and consent. For now, let flickering runes drift across your eyelids, each a symbol of longing too deep for words. You wake to heavy boots on packed earth and the creak of wooden carts. The village hums with early labor, buckets sloshing, livestock snorting, hay crackling on muddy paths. You follow the activity to a farmstead at the settlement's edge, a large structure with fenced pastures and outbuildings. This homestead belongs to a herser, a wealthy landowner named Armjorn. Here, you'll face an uncomfortable truth, the entanglement of sex and slavery. Inside the longhouse, smoke and sweat fill the air. Armjorn sits at the hall's high end, laughing as his youngest son chases a goose. His wife, stoic, eyes you briefly before returning to her embroidery. Off to the side, women work looms and grind grain, silent, careful, always a step removed. These are thralls, Viking slaves, woven into every story, including intimate ones. Thralls were born into slavery, captured in raids, or sold for debts. They worked land, tended fires, raised livestock, and sometimes warm beds. Consent was murky, often absent, yet these relationships were normalized. Children from such unions could be absorbed into households, even freed if acknowledged. You meet Leif, a 17-year-old chopping wood, with Armjorn's gray-blue eyes. His thrall mother died in childbirth. Armjorn's wife, Sigfrid, raised him almost as her own. Educated, trusted, respected, but not equal. "I can fight, marry a free woman if she'll have me," Leif says, "but I can't inherit. Not unless the law changes or someone dies. Legal lines were blurry, but social ones rigid. Thralls had no say in sexual relationships, yet some bonds grew complex. Sagas tell of freed slaves marrying former masters, thrall women wielding influence through children or intimacy. Exploitation was common, but so were tangled attachments. A cook stirring a fishy pot mentions secret thrall-free marriages, not legal, but recognized if couples raised children and worked land, a quiet defiance. Still, equality was a myth. Two men grumble about a neighbor letting his thrall eat at the table. Next, he'll let her wear his wife's jewelry. Disdain drips. At a harvest feast, thralls serve, laugh when expected, and fade into shadows as music swells. You notice Inga, a thrall, locking eyes with Armjorn's eldest son. Later, they vanish behind a bearskin. Is it love, escape, or a blurred power imbalance? Sex here is steeped in hierarchy. The term thrall comes from a word meaning to run. Many were dragged across seas, forced into foreign homes. Some stopped running, not from safety but survival's demand. Scholars debate thrall life, utterly oppressed, or carving out small agency. Grave goods suggest affection. Brutal laws treated thralls as property. Inga laughs with confidence. Leaf walks with half a birthright, but their futures hinge on one family's whims. One bad season, marriage, or scandal could see them sold. The fire crackles low. The family sleeps, thralls curled in quieter corners. You lie on scratchy wool and sheepskin, imagining a world where freedom is a distant hope shaped by who you please, obey, or dare to love. Tomorrow, you'll trace side relationships, mistresses, lovers, second wives, and their tangled sagas. Tonight, let the fire blur lines between master and servant, power and pleasure, and drift into uneasy sleep. The next morning, the longhouse is quiet, just the hearth's crackle, ashes swept into a corner, and a loom's rhythmic thump. After a night of unspoken things, stillness hangs. You step into frosty air, grass sparkling like spilled sugar, and head to a smaller village across the river, home to Kettle, a chieftain known for wealth and a messy romantic life. Kettle has a wife, Odni, stern, sharp-tongued, famed for embroidery and making men cry at feasts. He also has lovers, maybe a milkmaid or two, depending on who's talking. Monogamy wasn't ironclad, especially for powerful men. Polygamy wasn't legally formal like in some cultures, but in formal arrangements? Common. A man like Kettle might marry one woman and keep concubines or household women. The line between mistress and servant was thin, flammable. At Kettle's grand hall, shields line the walls, a carved serpent coils around the doorframe. Inside, it's warm, loud with laughter, ale, and tension. Odni sits at the high table, unreadable, while Brynhild, a merchant's daughter and Kettle's lover, laughs too loudly at his jokes. Brynhild isn't hiding. She sits close, touches his arm, shares his plate. Odni doesn't look at her. She doesn't need to. Owning half the land, she could divorce Kettle for public humiliation or squandering her dowry. But divorce is messy, especially with sons and reputation at stake. She waits, a tactician filing away every slight. A servant whispers of Kettle's past lover, Asa, quietly married off to a cousin after pregnancy. Odni's doing, no threats, just social chess. Women may lack direct power, but they play the long game, controlling home, hearth, and inheritance. Cross them, and your lineage better match your libido. Multiple partners were tolerated, even celebrated, if handled with discretion and skill. You hear of a Viking chieftain who housed 3 women, a legal wife, a concubine, and one nobody dared label. She had her own room, her own keys, and once settled a clan boundary dispute with a single letter. They called her the Quiet Knife. A fringe fact catches your eye. A rune carved into the corner of Kettle's headboard, shaped like a twisted M. A house servant says it protects against jealousy or boosts stamina, depending on who carved it. This is sex magic, personal and potent. Viking lovers etched runes into bed frames, jewelry, or clothing to bind affection. guard against infidelity, or enhance performance. Part charm, part superstition, taken seriously. Even burly warriors admit love, messy, unpredictable, is more dangerous than steel. At dinner, tension between Odny and Brynhild simmers. Odny compliments Brynhild's dress with a tone that could curdle milk. Brynhild praises Odny's roast meat. Silence falls, then forced laughter. It's not just about Kettle. It's about the pecking order. Who sits where, commands attention, or gets immortalized in sagas. Later, by the low-burning fire, you chat with a skald, a poet with more secrets than teeth. He shares the saga of Thorin Sharptongue, a farmer's wife who took a lover when her husband, presumed dead, was raiding. When he returned demanding loyalty, she laughed. I'm not a chest to be opened and closed at your pleasure. She later became a chieftain, husbandless, in control. Scholars debate women's roles in such relationships. Some see concubines as exploited, voiceless. Others argue many were savvy, trading status or love for comfort and protection. The truth lies in a murky middle where survival, affection, and strategy blur. In Kettle's Hall, music slows, guests pair off, disappear or pass out. Brynhild slips into a side room. Odny retires, face unreadable. Kettle lingers by the fire, polishing a knife he never uses. You lie on a fur-covered bench, wondering how many relationships here are about love versus power in disguise. Tomorrow, you'll dive into how insults shaped this world, especially those striking below the belt. For now, the crackling fire lulls you. Love here may not be romantic, but it's sharp, strategic, and sometimes, just sometimes, sincere. Morning hits like a swinging shield, bright, cold, too loud. Shouting echoes across the field, sharp enough to signal more than a goat fencing dispute. Groggy, you follow the noise to two men squared off in the village center, surrounded by a crowd reeking of wood smoke, ale, and bloodthirsty anticipation. You stumbled into a Viking insult match, not the fun kind. A phrase rings out, echoing off the boathouse. You milk goats better than your wife. Laughter erupts, but it's bitter. This is the art of Viking humiliation, where insults can kill, or worse, publicly shame. The target, Dag, stocky and red-faced, fumes. His opponent, Skari, wiry with a permanent sneer, knows his words aren't just to sting. They're to ruin. In Viking society, insults aren't about hurt feelings, but honor, masculinity, social standing. Targeting a man's sexual prowess or role is a challenge to his place in the hierarchy. Dag fires back, accusing Skari of letting his wife take lovers while he counts sheep. Someone bleats. A mug drops in shock. It's gone nuclear. A blacksmith with tree trunk arms explains this as flighting, a traditional insult exchange like a rap battle, but with alliteration and higher stakes. One wrong phrase could spark a home gang, a duel to first blood or death, depending on tempers and whether someone's mother is watching. Vikings excelled at sexualized insults, not just accusing cowardice or laziness, but penetration, softness, womanliness. Calling someone argy, sexually passive, enjoying it, was a reputational apocalypse. Women had their own arsenal. A woman at the crowd's edge whispers gleefully of a feud between farmers' wives. One claimed the other's ale was so weak, even her husband can swallow it, implying he's unmanly. The response? Sewing an inverted phallus into her rival's cloak hem. Quiet, devastating. You spot him staying behind a barn, a shame pole with a crude face, downward-pointing genitals, and runes cursing the victim's manhood and barley crop. Viking poetry at its finest. These poles weren't just insults, but near-magical curses. Planting one was such shaming that families might flee villages. Victims could become Ning, social dead men, stripped of honor. Insults were immortalized in skaldic poetry, packed with double meanings. One saga compares a rival's courage to a limp eel in a winter stream. Another mocks a man's breath as cowards and unwashed groins. These verses were shared, remembered, passed down. Insulting without proof, though, could land you at the thing, facing fines, outlawing, or execution if the end was public enough. It was law, but also theater. An old woman, Haldora, recounts two brothers insulting each other so viciously their mother slapped them and spilled their ale to spare the gods the nonsense. They fought anyway. The prettier one lost. Scholars debate. Was this toxic masculinity or a code to curb chaos? Some see rigid patriarchy enforcing conformity. Others note wit, courage, and humor earning respect across gender and class. Dag storms off red-faced. Scary toasts with stolen mead. It's not over. Insults fester, burrow, sometimes bleed. Tomorrow, you'll explore women with axes, men in dresses, and blurry Viking gender myths. For now, settle between words and wounds. They're often the same. Viking society isn't simple. Not just blood and beards or mead and manhood. It's tangled, contradictory, flexible yet rigid. This hits you when Runa, a woman who looks like she wrestles bears for breakfast, hands you a sword. She leads a raiding crew, swinging an axe, binding her chest under a leather vest, eating more mutton than most men. She's Hursur or Shield Maiden, depending on her mood. Shield Maidens aren't just sagas. They're flesh, blood, calloused knuckles. Runa's as feared as any warrior, but not every village welcomes her. Some celebrate warrior women. Others tolerate them as mythic outliers. Gender bends surprisingly here. Despite obsession with honor and sexual dominance, Vikings didn't always see identity as binary. Men could practice seer, women's magic, taboo, shameful but powerful. Odin himself, the All-Father, used seer, whispering spells in a dress. Loki, chaos incarnate, ignores rules entirely, shifting into women, animals, even birthing an eight-legged horse. Scholars debate, is Loki gender fluid or a trickster using any tool? Some see a shamanic role predating binaries, others a cautionary figure. Hardamak, a god who gifts Odin a horse. You meet Hjalti, a weaver proud of his fine tunics and swaying grace. Villagers respect him. He makes good clothes and killed two men in duels. One shrugs. Why care how he walks? Value here comes from what you do. Fight, feed, move a room with poetry. Evidence of same-sex relationships exists, whispered in academia. Two men, lovers, buried side by side with weapons and rings, their story retold as brothers, friends, or more. A drinking horn carving shows two figures in dresses embracing. Jest, love, ritual? Someone kept it. Runa shares stew by the fire, recounting her first kill, mistaken for a boy until her blade struck. After that, no one cared what I looked like. She's had lovers, men and women, easier when moving village to village. People don't mind strange stories with loot, she grins. But lines remain. She can't marry without settling, can't inherit without a death, and RG is still a fighting word. Rules bend, never break. New graves, women with weapons, men with beads, blur the picture. The past defies modern boxes. Tonight, the hall's noise feels like a song with too many verses, not enough chorus. You think of Loki in a gown, Odin's spells, Runa's starlit axe. Jagged, rough, every edge hides a story. Tomorrow, you'll sail a longboat, exploring desire at sea, far from rules. For now, rest in the fire's glow, welcoming anyone strong enough to survive its heat. Dawn breaks sharp and wet, mist rising off the fjord like giant's breath. You wade through knee-high grass to the docks, where a longship bobs, its serpent prow slicing fog. You're no raider, just an extra hand on a coastal journey with 20 men, 3 women, and unspoken tension. Longboats aren't glamorous, crowded, wet, smelling of sweat, wolf, fish. But they're intimate. Shoulder to shoulder, you row, sleep tangled in furs, share bread, jokes, sometimes more. By midday, flirting sparks. A salt-haired warrior sings a dirty verse about sailing into warm harbors. Salver, leather-clad, braid like a whip, rolls her eyes but smiles. They've done this before. Smirks ripple. The crew enjoys the show. Longboats were crucibles. Raiding, bonding, complicating. Weeks in a floating bathtub breed attachments. Fleeting, passionate, dangerous. After dark, two young rowers giggle under sailcloth, thinking they're unheard. Everyone hears, says nothing. Discretion matters. Affairs could strengthen bonds or threaten unity. Lovers' quarrels are tolerated unless they spark mutiny or duels. The helmsman Olaf grunts, happens all the time. Keep your head, don't touch the captain's sister. On a boat, looks linger, jokes weigh heavier. Land gone, people unbutton, literally, metaphorically. A warrior recites a love poem, her eyes sharp as a forge hammer, open to interpretation. Ingrid, an older woman, claims she seduced a Shetland monk with bread and a belt charm. Voyages make everything urgent, she says. You take what you can, even a cold blanket in another's hands. Same-sex bonds simmer, quiet glances, shared blankets. Two men, always together, wear matching serpent tokens. No one speaks, no one needs to. Sagas hint at sea-born love. Warriors confessing in storms, never apart after. A raider seduced by an Irish captive, stabbed with a fishhook. Forced affection is unforgivable. Rape shames, breaks oaths. A greasy rower with wandering hands is thrown overboard. No trial, just a splash. Scholars debate romanticized seafaring. Some call it fantasy. Others cite poetic fragments, shared burial goods, carved nicknames. The boat holds warriors, stories, secrets. Under a tattered wolfskin sky, bodies cluster for warmth. A shared flask passes hand to hand. Near the prow, soft laughter bubbles from under a cloak as two people slip toward the stern. You close your eyes, back sore, legs stiff, heart strangely full. Out here, desire's raw. No halls, no shame poles, no in-laws. Just the thrum of waves against wood, the sigh of someone shifting in sleep, and the sense that even in this cold, brutal world, someone might reach for your hand in the dark. Tomorrow, you'll return ashore and dive into Viking poetry, verses that conceal, reveal, and flirt better than any glance. For now, let the water rock you, soft and steady, as you dream of sails, sparks, and stolen moments at sea. The longboat glides into the harbor like a beast returning from a hunt, battered, proud, reeking of salt and sweat. As the crew disembarks, stretching sore limbs and cursing gulls, the village buzzes with cheers and waving. Boots thud on dry land. But what catches your ear isn't the shouting. It's a low, rhythmic murmur laced with innuendo, so thick it could grease a cart axle. The speaker, a skald named Thorgny, bearded and sly, carries a drinking horn like a weapon. By the smithy, he weaves a poem for a small crowd, comparing a woman's hips to a longship's curves, her sighs to creaking oars, her kisses to mead warmed on a warrior's tongue. Half the listeners nod solemnly, others stifle laughter. This is Viking culture's underbelly. Love poetry, or rather sex poetry cloaked in metaphor, delivered deadpan like a weather report. Poetry wasn't just for elegies or boasting. It was a seduction tool. Skalds, part poets, part bards, could make or break reputations with a stanza. Their romantic verses, layered in seafaring and battle imagery, were blunt beneath the surface. A line about guiding my prow into your stormy cove isn't about sailing. You trail Thorgny, who knows everyone and owes most of the money. He gives you a crash course in skaldic seduction, clever phrasing, rhythm, delivery, and a crucial smirk. He tells of a warrior who wooed a chieftain's daughter with a verse likening her lips to frost on steel. She married him 3 days later, though he died 2 weeks after when she disliked his verse about her ankles. Poetry was reputation. A man skilled with words rivaled one skilled with a sword. A woman with a sharp verse was terrifyingly admirable. A saga tells of Helga, proposed to by 3 men in a week. She wrote poems for each. The one with a beard pun won. The fair as the moon, suitor was mocked for unoriginality. The third, referencing livestock, fared poorly. These poems balanced dirty and delicate, rarely vulgar, crafted to make the target blush in mixed company. You find carved poetry scraps on a comb's handle, a shield's rim, a fishbone offering. Her laugh unmans me more than winter. For your hand, I'd unarm my heart. Viking love riddles were outrageous, delivered innocently. What stands tall in the morning is held at noon, sleeps in a sheath by night. Not a sword. These were flirting tools, drinking games. Everyone pretended not to get it, but no one was fooled. A weaver shares a fringe fact. Some women tested suitors with poetry. One noble woman demanded alliterative verse proposals, rejecting stumblers. She died single, but her poetry was used by a bishop to win debates. Literary legacy over love. Poorly aimed verses could spark trouble. A skald implying a rival tossed his sword too early, faced a dawn duel, fleeing with his verse nailed to a tree. Scholars debate whether Viking poetry was romantic or satirical. Some say most were for entertainment. Others argue poetry voiced vulnerability in a guarded culture, longing masked as cleverness. By dusk, the village is tipsy, flushed for verse. Near the fire pit, Svala recites a stanza about her ex, a broken cartwheel, and improbable metaphors. The crowd howls, someone add the line. Viking poetry lives, evolving with every voice, seducing, shaming, praising, prodding, a candle's light under an armored door. Tomorrow, you'll witness a fertility rite that makes this look subtle. Swords, symbols, ritual turning myth into muscle memory. For now, sleep with a half-stanza in your mind. Her breath, warm as a hearth at sea, burns sharper than my axe can be. You wake to drumming, slow, rhythmic like a heartbeat older than civilization. The village feels hushed, tense with ritual seriousness. People move quietly, wrapped in furs, faces streaked with ash and ochre. Children stay close, tools lie untouched. It's a feast day for Freya, goddess of love, lust, and life. You're swept into a procession through a forest path to a ring of monoliths, mist swirling like spirits. A carved Freya idol watches with amber eyes, adorned with beads, bones, wilting flowers. This fertility rite honors crops, livestock, people. Elders whisper that neglecting the gods means no babies, no harvest, no fat animals. The community dances, prays, performs, sometimes getting freaky for divine balance. At midday, haunting melodies rise as barley is scattered at the idol's base. A gleaming sword is laid across a wooden cradle, symbolism unsubtle. Then it intensifies. A masked couple, him in a stag mask, her a boar, sacred to Freya and Freyr, performs a seductive pantomime, movements sensual yet ritualized. He lowers the sword. She straddles it, arms raised. The meaning deafens, but no one snickers. This is sacred theater. Fertility is vital, spiritual. Sex isn't separate from life. It is life. The divine lives in desire, in trembling breath. Not everyone joins, but the masked couple leads pairs into the forest, some holding hands, laughing softly. Acts there range from symbolic to intimate, all consensual, blessed by the rite. You stay with the elders, watching sparks rise. Svanhild shares a fringe fact. Some couples lost their virginity under these trees, believing Freya's blessing ensured strong unions. It's not sin, she says, spitting into the fire. It's survival. In a smoky hut, women pass a palm-sized Freya idol, whispering wishes, a strong son, a loyal lover, no more miscarriages. The intimacy floors you. Viking brutality softens here, revering creation's magic, balancing Freya and Freyr, blade and sheath. Scholars debate. Were these rites symbolic or literal? Some cite sagas implying orgiastic elements. Others call them theatrical. The story's vividness suggests truth between paper and oral tradition. By dusk, most wander home or linger under pines. The unmasked couple, carpenter and merchant's daughter, curl together, whispering radiant. Their future? Maybe nothing, maybe everything, a baby, marriage legend. You walk back alone, embers glowing in your mind. This feels different from longhouse flirtations or insult duels. It's about longing life, the ache beneath the skin, older than language. Tomorrow, you'll enter the Viking bathhouse where nudity and social rules soak in cedar steam. Tonight, sleep under stars that have watched countless rituals and will outlast you. You wake aching, flower pollen in your hair, soot on your cheek, a knot-shaped charm in hand. Romance or luck, you keep it. After lusty rites and poetry, you crave calm. The bathhouse awaits. Not a Roman marble spa, but a smoky, pine-scented lodge. Vikings bathed often, weekly or more, obsessive from medieval times. Anglo-Saxons mocked their cleanliness, claiming it lured women. Inside, damp cedar, moss, sweat, and steam fill your lungs. Naked figures move in mist, laughing softly, sloshing water, slapping birch branches for circulation or stress relief. A red-haired man sighs as he pours hot water over his shoulders. A woman scrubs with ashen fat soap. They chat, naked, unbothered. The bathhouse is neutral ground. Warriors, merchants, men, women, young, old shed armor, literal and emotional. Ragna, an elder, hands you a cloth. Scrub your back. No one likes a dusty spine. You obey, laughing. Modesty is contextual. Ankles raise brows outside, but here, they're the least revealing. A couple flirts across the room, joking about sunburn, sharing water, murmuring. Bathhouses birth trysts, alliances, secrets. Catley shares a fringe fact. A woman in his uncle's village smelled marriage potential in sweat, marrying 4 times. Oils, hair rinsing, herb brushing carry eroticism. 2 women braid hair, laughing, lovers, sisters, friends? It doesn't matter. Some bathhouses were watched, especially amid tensions. Sagas tell of steam room assassinations, jealous husbands leaving pig heads by towels. Mostly, though, they were sanctuaries easing Viking life's edges. If lovers left together, the fog kept quiet. Someone hands you minty, smoky brew, a thank you or a beginning. Outside, cold air slaps your skin, but you're softer, quieter. Scholars debate co-ed bathhouses' prevalence, rare or common, citing soapstones, fire pits, sagas. Tomorrow, you'll explore death rites, where mourning and sexuality intertwine. For now, walk back, steam trailing, skin tingling with strange peace. Horns blow, long and sorrowful, echoing like stone-carved songs. The village stills. Conversations halt. A child stops chasing a chicken. People walk toward the fjord, heads low. Someone's died. Death here isn't silent. It's ceremonial, mythic, laced with sex. You witness a high-status funeral for a landowner chieftain, his body on a fur-draped stone platform, sword at his side, silver rings on stiff fingers. Offerings surround him, grain, jewelry, a game board for the afterlife. Women in dark blue cloaks, led by a gray-braided vulva with river ice eyes, move slowly. She's guiding his soul, blurring reverence, release, desire. You hear of grave maidens, women chosen, sometimes voluntarily, to accompany the dead. In earlier times, this meant sacrifice, symbolic or literal. Now, it's ritualized, intimate gestures returning vitality to the earth or easing the spirit's journey. The body, washed and oiled, is touched, blessed, sometimes straddled by the vulva in a metaphysical send-off. Sacred, surreal, not sexual in the conventional sense. She traces symbols on the dead man's chest with a bone needle dipped in honey and ash, her voice a low, biting lullaby. The crowd stands still, children absent. This is more than farewell. It's theater, myth made flesh. Then comes the murmured rite, the farewell performed by Anna, his companion, not his wife, who died years ago. Anna, a former thrall freed after bearing his son, their union unblessed by law, but known as his true partnership, steps forward. She sheds her cloak, revealing tattoos winding like ivy down her arms and stomach. Kneeling beside the body, she chants, words tightening your chest. Her slow, deliberate touches, brow, hands, heart, echo something primal. You shouldn't watch, yet can't look away. This rite blurs mourning, magic performance, a raw closure modern rituals can't touch. An elder shares a fringe fact. Some high-status Viking funerals ended in communal catharsis. Feasting, storytelling, ritualized intimacy, symbolic couplings among mourners to honor the departed's generative force. Not orgies, but a reminder that death amplifies desire. In a world of killer winters, lost warriors, and childbirth's toll, the body is sacred in all forms. Loving, fighting, dying. Scholars clash like wildfire. Some claim erotic funeral elements were exaggerated by outsiders like Ibn Fadlan, awed and horrified by the Rus. Others argue Norse culture embraced sexuality in a life-death cycle, unhindered by later Christian moral lines. The body is lifted onto a death ship with offerings, sword, and Freya totem. Flames catch cloak, beard, sails. The boat drifts into the fjord, smoke trailing like a second soul. The crowd sings, a low chant pulsing through your ribs. Hands touch, foreheads meet, tears fall openly. No one pretends or hides. As flames die and charred wood sinks, Anna returns, ash-streaked, standing tall. Someone cloaks her shoulders. She doesn't cry. You walk back in silence, surrounded by those who've seen death and desire intertwine under a godly sky. Tomorrow, Loki's shape-shifting and awkward parenting will bring laughter. Tonight, let this weight linger. Love burns long after the body turns to smoke. The next day, bites colder, clinging to your ribs, making teeth reconsider their loyalty. A strange anticipation hums. The village senses something brewing, like a pot bubbling under feigned ignorance. Loki enters the conversation, trickster, shapeshifter, boundary obliterator. Norse gods are chaotic. Loki is entropy with a smirk, making modern anti-heroes seem tame. In a longhouse, sipping bitter warmth, a boy announces he knows the true story of Loki's horse baby. Silence falls, not doubt, but reverence for a sacred, absurd tale. The gods needed a wall around Asgard. A builder demanded Freya, the sun, and moon as payment, promising to finish alone with his stallion, Svatalfari, a stone-hauling beast. Realizing they'd lose their goddess, the gods turned to Loki. He became a mare, luring the stallion away. Details are sparse, but the result is Sleipnir, an 8-legged horse, Odin's prized steed. The weirdness isn't Loki's birth-giving, the lack of horror, or the gods keeping the horse. It's Odin's casual, best steed I ever rode. Viking gender boundaries flex. Loki male, takes female form, births a child, is mocked but respected, still a god, still feasting. You hear more Loki tales, disguising as a milkmaid to steal Thor's hammer, accusing gods of sexual misdeeds, most don't deny it, shape-shifting into a salmon to dodge Baldur's death. These stories blend humor and unease. Loki challenges roles, gods, mortals, men, women, lovers, liars. He's transgressive, sacred chaos spinning the universe. An old storyteller, Otter, shares a fringe fact. Some shamans wore dresses in Loki rituals, honoring his transcendence, not mimicking women. He's not male, Otter says, eyes glinting. He's Loki. Loki's monstrous children, Hel, the half-dead underworld goddess, Jormungandr, the world serpent, Fenrir, Odin's doom, suggest a prize for bending order. Scholars debate, is Loki an Indo-European trickster, fluid and transformative, or a Christian scribe villain? By firelight, the stories feel alive, not judged, just raw, chaotic divinity. Someone carves a horse into a beam near your bed. Smirking, sometimes the weirdest solution is right. In a world of near death and fallible gods, lines blur. Men become Mares, tricks save worlds, scandals turn symbols. You sleep, dreaming of Sleipnir's hooves thundering through a rule-breaking sky. Tension wakes you, thick enough to cut with a dull spoon. The longhouse is silent. No laughter, just coughs and clinking cups. Outside, villagers circle a training field, eyes sharp. Two men face off, Sten, a wiry, prideful fisherman, and Eirik, a broad farmer who insults plowing techniques. Swords drawn, this is a home gang, a duel sparked not by sheep or land, but a verse Sten recited about Eirik's wife, a fish rack, and last spring's tryst. The verse about salted cod and borrowed beds wasn't poetic. It was a jab, now drawing blood. The rules: a 9 by 9 pace square, shields placed, witnesses called. No seconds, both want it settled directly. The duel stops at blood, yield, or death. Sexual accusations fueled many home gangs. A man's reputation lived in how others spoke of his body, prowess, role, and desire. Calling someone argy, unmanly, passive, was a call to fight. Ignoring it was acceptance. The duel begins with blades unsheathing, boots crunching frost. Sten strikes. Eirik dodges. The crowd murmurs, half rooting, half dreading. Sexual reputation ties to violence. Accusations of being the woman imply weakness, cowardice, dishonor. Scholars argue, was this social order or raw patriarchy weaponizing sex? Blades clash. Eirik cuts Sten's thigh, dropping him. Blood ends it, but Eirik leans down, whispers, and Sten flinches. Eirik throws his sword into the dirt and walks away, restraint louder than blood. Sten limps off, jaw tight. No cheers, just somber acceptance. Later, Eirik sharpens a scythe. I love her once. Maybe still, he says, not clarifying his wife, truth, or something else. At dinner, a nervous joke about Sten's swan-like limp draws uneasy laughter. No one wants to duel next. A law speaker shares a fringe fact. Some home gangs were ritualized, rarely fatal, meant to rebalance honor. Yet death happened enough that some villages banned them for fines or exile. Not here, not yet. The duel was poetry. Two men in a sacred square, fighting over a verse that might be nothing. But verses here are weapons, confessions, curses. Tomorrow, you'll seek carved runestones, love notes and graffiti of the Viking heart. Tonight, sleep in the quiet longhouse, thankful no one slandered your fish-drying habits. You wake to birdsong and a chisel's steady tap, like a heartbeat. Following it, you find an old man, Alvi, carving a waist-high granite runestone, red pigment in its grooves. The words form a name, and most beloved, strongest of hearts, a love letter in stone. Runestones that Viking lands, marking graves, voyages, or ties, but some are intimate. One near the blacksmith's reads, "They're gonna raise this stone for Ijal for dearer than breath." Another, behind a barn, says, "He kissed me once." The gods wept with envy. You hunt more, tracing a treasure map of ancient affection. Some are poetic, others blunt. She was good in bed, better in the boat. Alvi, his beard a climate of its own, shares a fringe fact. Some hired skalds for love inscriptions. Not everyone can say what they feel, he mutters. Stone lasts longer than regret. In a world of fire and winter, carving love into rock is defiance. Randy shows you a stone for her unmarried lover. His wife hated it, she smirks. But I understood his verses. Another, unclaimed, reads, "I dreamed of your hands before I met them. Was it woman to man, warrior to warrior? The mystery is its magic." A joking stone declares, Eirik loved women mead, and not waking up next to either. That night, talk turns to runestone's power. Someone claims one changed with the weather. Love and rain, silence and sun. A drunk skald suggests throwing runestones for failed loves into the fjord to sink emotional baggage. Laughter lingers too long. Scholars debate, were romantic runes rare anomalies or lost to time? Some suggest hidden messages, carved on stones' backs or below soil, secret longings. Runes are alive, touchable, a coded passion transcending time. You find a pebble on your furs, a rune scratched in. Alvi squints. It means want food, fire, or something warmer. You keep it. Tomorrow, you'll explore secret faiths, Christian converts, and battles between new beliefs and old desires. Tonight, dream in soft stone, where whispers outlive winds. Bells wake you, not blacksmith clangs or livestock jingles, but a deliberate chime in the mist. You follow to a new wooden kirkja on a hill, its cross crooked, beams unweathered. Inside, a pale priest in a sack-like robe welcomes all. No smoke, ale, or carved idols with exaggerated anatomy. Just a subtle war between gods, ways of being, with sex at the heart. The Kirtja is quiet, orderly, austere, smelling of wax and damp pine. Wooden benches line the walls. A plain carved altar stands with a simple cross and a book only the priest can read. The crowd, mostly young, is curious but cautious. Some shift awkwardly, as if standing too close to the altar might taint them with sin. Others wear small crosses under tunics, half hidden, half defiant. Two older women whisper near the door, "He won't last the winter." Whether they mean the priest or his faith is unclear. The sermon focuses on purity, marriage, fidelity, resisting temptation. The priest calls lust a soul-snaring trap, each word pushing against the village's traditions of mead-soaked laughter, fertility rites, and casual touches by the fire. He's declaring it all wrong. A young couple in the back, arms brushing, struggle not to smile at impure thoughts, their glances betraying amusement. The priest, sent from eastern trade routes, is part of a slow campaign to bring salvation, or control, to the north. Christianity spreads not by force, but suggestion. New marriage rules, new mourning customs, strict boundaries on touch. Not everyone's convinced. In the longhouse, Salver, who's attended the Kirkja, shrugs. "I like the songs. They sing better than us, but their gods shy about breasts." She laughs, admitting she tried saving herself for marriage once. It didn't stick. Leaning closer, she whispers, "Some follow both. The gods don't mind sharing." This double faith is common. Kirtja on Sundays, offerings to Freya on Mondays, hedging bets in case one god misses a prayer. A former raider, Bjorn, shares a fringe fact. Early converts hid fertility charms under beds, just in case. "Never know when you need a carved phallus and a Hail Mary." He winks. Tension simmers. A farmer's sister was barred from wearing her goddess pendant at her Kirtja wedding, deemed obscene. He grins, describing it as a little man, very enthusiastic. Ironically, Christianity's suppression makes sex louder, more forbidden, more tantalizing. Post-sermon trysts in the woods prove it. At a quiet Kirtja dinner, bread, broth, scripture read softly, peace reigns. Across the table, a newlywed couple's hands intertwine tightly, suggesting they've memorized the priest's warnings but haven't fully surrendered. You wonder about their wedding night. Silent and careful, or rules forgotten in passion. Scholars debate whether Christianity killed Norse sexuality with shame or if Viking culture adapted, blending old and new. The truth lies in these moments. A woman wearing a cross and rune, a man hearing sermons but whispering desire-filled poetry. By the window, a shadow passes Freya's shrine, leaving fresh flowers, a thank you or bribe. Tomorrow, a feast awaits, soaked in mead and flirtation, where fire burns hot and looks linger. Tonight, under the thatched roof, wonder which gods watch and whether they care who you kiss, only that it's sincere. Morning brings a golden haze, warmth before the next cold snap. The air carries roasted meat, fresh bread, and sweet mead spice. A feast day, not holy but celebratory, promising music, meat, and flotation wilder than a tavern brawl. The longhouse hums by midday, smoke swirling from the fire pit, benches laden with herb-stuffed trout, barley stew, steaming flatbread. A mead horn is thrust into your hand before you sit, wedged between two chatting women and an elderly man who teases, spoken for. Salver, in a red tunic with gold embroidery and bone-beaded braids, holds court by the hearth, sizing up a smug young warrior. Feasts are for alliances, matchmaking, mischief, served with boar-fattened ballads. Skalds play a bawdy song about a goat, a widow, and a ladder. The crowd cackles, adding verses. The music weaves people closer. A man with a roast goose bumps you, winking, "No need to apologize, unless you want to do it again." Subtlety is optional. Feasts loosen rules. Marital status becomes a suggestion. Glances linger, hands brush. A married woman kisses a traitor's cheek. A young man feeds a thrall girl honey cake. A couple slips out, unnoticed or ignored. Your benchmate, asked about jealousy, shrugs. If it's serious, you speak. If it's a night, you sing a better verse. Love and sex aren't always entwined. Mead blurs what you wanted. A drunk scald, Finn, shares a fringe fact. Feasts included betting games, rhyming challenges, flirtation duels, mock proposals. In one, guests recited scandalous poetry. Failures meant serving drinks or sharing kisses, maybe more. Mead halls had corners, curtains, furs for a reason. Not all is carefree. A woman slaps her companion for asking if she shared a bed as easily as a cup. Consent matters, even on feast day. Someone escorts her out, leaving him red-faced, friendless. Yet connections bloom. Shared laughs over spilled drinks, lingering touches, secret glances across flames. A couple in an alcove, new to each other, trade verses about storm-wet hair and thunderous hands, making you blush. Scholars debate, were feasts this free, or do sagas exaggerate? Some cite arranged marriages and hierarchies. Others point to poetry and laws celebrating desire. Both are true. Feasts blend ritual, chaos, seduction, like braids in a festival crown. By night, mead warms, fires dim, music slows. Couples vanish or curl together, kissing behind cloaks. The feast sighs to a close. You lie near the hearth, cloak as pillow, buzzing. A lullaby hums about a maiden kissing a king, her lungs afire, haunting, ambiguous, a warning and blessing. Tomorrow, Viking contraception awaits, herbs, charms, midwives' whispers. Tonight, let food, fire, and unspoken invitations settle like a second skin. No shame, just daring reaches for connection. You wake to quiet chatter and crushed leaves. The air smells of cold ash, damp moss, fennel, or thyme. Following the scent past livestock pens to a hut under a leaning pine, you meet Brynja, the village's herbalist, midwife, secret keeper. She's grinding herbs, arms clay-streaked. Leaves or story, she asks. Both. Over anise-sweat tea, her hut reveals dried nettle, juniper, mugwort, rune-carved bones, and scratched stone jars. Drink if you're not making a child, she grins. If you are, run. Viking contraception was patchwork. Herbal teas, prayers, whispered advice. Wild carrot seed teas, juniper poultices, vinegar-soaked wool pessaries worked variably, often by luck. A strange charm. Fox fur and carved bone tied to the thigh, buried under a fruit tree when Menzies returned. Don't ask about the bone, she says, sipping tea. Contraception wasn't taboo. Children were precious, but timing was survival. Winter babies or back-to-back births risked death. Herbs and talismans ensured survival. An elder sorting leaves shares a fringe fact. Some women timed sex with moon phases, believing a full moon kept the belly empty. She winks, hinting you meant for breath, not womb. Freya was invoked to delay conception. Reverse charms, words whispered into water, not fire. Brynja learned from her mother, her grandmother, and crying women. When men raided, women sought comfort, touch, not always babies. Men sought her too. A youth wanted a girl to forget their tryst. Another feared dying before his child's birth. Fear's expensive, she says, charging extra. Scholars debate. Was this medicine or superstition? Some call it rudimentary, luck-driven. Others cite Roman, Egyptian, Celtic parallels, showing women's agency in love and choice. Brynja hands you a pouch with herbs and carved wood. Tuck in your belt. It's for intention. Women share stories. One swears by raspberry leaf, another by a rune under her mattress, effective for 3 years. A pregnant woman laughs, admitting her herbs failed. Viking women were observant, resourceful. Midwives were healers, counselors, chemists. You tuck Brynja's pouch under your cloak, a quiet, powerful secret. Tomorrow, childbirth awaits, blood, breath, belief. Tonight, sleep with herbs clinging to your clothes, in a world where sex and control are sacred. A scream wakes you, not fear or anger, but a bone-deep roar of childbirth, older than gods or runes. The village stirs, alert but unsurprised. You follow voices to a longhouse by the stream, marked by feathers and charms. Inside it's dim hot, thick with sweat, moss, boiled water, herbs. Women move efficiently, offering broth, massaging the laboring woman, Svea, a young farmer's wife. She grips a leather strap tied to a beam, legs braced, teeth clenched, growling at her sister for wrong herbs, roaring through contractions. Brinja, the midwife, is unshakable, whispering encouragement, flicking sweat from Svea's brow. A teenage apprentice, eyes wide, hands steady, assists. The room's rhythm is ancient. Push, breathe, press, chant. In the corner, a woman hums a pine wind birthing song. You sit quietly, respectfully, in this female space where presence trumps words. An elder kneading cloths in hot water says births vary. More blood, more silence, but gods are involved. A worn Freya carving hangs above, a goat skull with ash and herbs at Svea's feet. Runes on her thighs invoke protection. Red thread in her hair guards against wandering spirits. Birth is metaphysical, a door between life and death, where babies or mothers may not survive. Charms, prayers, knives stand ready. Brinja shares a fringe fact. Some women swallowed carved soapstone or bone amulets to guide the baby out. Sometimes the gods like symbols, sometimes they ignore us, she shrugs. Hours blur, the fire hot, singing fading to humming. Svea, sweat slicked, grips your wrist through a contraction, her strength terrifying. A piercing cry, not hers, signals the baby's arrival. Red, wet, furious, a boy. The cord is cut with flint, salt rubbed on his skin for purity, strength. Swaddled, he's placed on Svea's chest. She laughs, hoarse, disbelieving. Relief replaces effort. Brinja checks Svea's bleeding, not excessive. The afterbirth is buried by the doorway to anchor the child's spirit. Burning it risks wandering, deep burial delays speech. The father enters when invited, placing a carved toy or tool by the baby, a silent promise. He touches Svea's forehead, whispering her name like a spell. Brinja snorts when asked about another child soon, not till snow melts and her body forgets. Or a feast day, mead fools anyone. Scholars debate Viking reproductive knowledge, guesswork, or centuries-old wisdom. Midwives, herbal traditions, and observations suggest the latter. Svea sleeps, baby on her chest, their breaths synced. A soft birth song hums. Tomorrow, you'll explore artifacts, erotic objects revealing hidden desires. Tonight, sleep with the newborn's cry echoing, life hard but persistent, sacred, messy, soft. You wake to digging, methodical, not panicked. Hild, the village's unofficial archaeologist, works a trench behind the old smithy, unearthing a penis-shaped antler pendant. For luck, she says, shrugging. Fertility or a good night. Today's about erotic artifacts, physical traces of Viking intimacy. In her shed, shelves hold phallus-shaped charms, goddess figurines with exaggerated hips and breasts, vulva amulets, a bronze brooch of entwined figures. Some are symbolic, others explicit. They wore, traded, gifted, buried these, Hild says, showing a suggestive wooden spoon handle. A fringe fact, women's graves held erotic objects, a cloth-wrapped bronze dildo, a box of phallic charms with herbs, a traveling love kit. Scholars debate, fertility symbols or sex toys. The line's thin, pleasure and fertility intertwined. Runes on artifacts carry messages. May you return with fire in your hips and peace in your soul. He was quick, but I was quicker. Hild insists they're authentic, dirt still in the engravings. A whalebone figure of a serene, reclining woman might be a lover or fantasy, not a goddess. These objects were personal, tied to identity, belief. A man's phallus charm for bravery, a woman's goddess figurine for pleasure or fertility. Scholars argue over their prevalence, rare novelties or widespread. Found from Iceland to the Baltics, they weren't hidden. In a ruined longhouse, Hild uncovers a bronze pregnant belly charm in a hearthstone, an offering for childbirth or twins. At dinner, Reactions to these finds vary: laughter, teasing. An old man says his grandmother's penis-shaped brooch warded off evil and bad husbands. 3 died before ruining her name. Sleep comes with thoughts of secret lives swallowed by earth. Love and sex lost to silence until a charm is unearthed. Tomorrow, explore modesty, its rules, etiquette, and crossings. Tonight, rest knowing even the dead leave stories, some shaped like genitals. You wake to find your cloak stolen, stumbling half-naked into the chill. No one cares. Modesty here is contextual, not absolute. Your cloak's on a fence post. A half-dressed man jogs to the stream, trousers in hand, laughing as a woman tosses his sandal, also laughing. No scandal, just teasing. An old man says he lost or won a bet. Nudity isn't inherently sexual or shameful. Bathing, sleeping, or working shirtless is practical. Wet clothes in winter kill. But context matters. Bare in the bathhouse, fine. Trouserless at a feast, insulting. Mooning with a manhood jab could spark a fight. Sagas show public nakedness as a reputational attack, marking men as vulnerable, weak. Female nudity, though, could be powerful. Women lifting skirts to curse enemies or flashing vulvas in battle as primal defiance. A chieftain's wife once exposed herself in a dispute, claiming her womb birthed warriors while rivals birthed lies. She won. Modesty means neat hair, clean hands, tunics covering essentials in public, signaling dignity, not prudishness. Weavers treat clothing like warriors treat blades. A tight dress signals confidence or availability. A loose shift, practicality or invitation. In private, couples wear little. At feasts, linen and wool are tidy, showing respect. Overdressing raises suspicion. What's hidden? Young villagers dare a naked fjord dash, shouting, "Kiss my saga." No shame, just chaos. Scholars debate. Was nudity practical or charged with power? Both. The body isn't just a body, but intent defines scandal. Sleep in your reclaimed cloak. Vulnerability, not weakness. Exposure a declaration. I am here. Tomorrow, forbidden love, same-sex bonds, secret romances awaits. Tonight, drift, knowing some loved boldly in ways unnamed. You wake to a watchful presence. Not a person, but a feeling. The air is still, the fire low, the sky gray mist. Today's for whispered stories, lingering glances, shadowed truths. Same-sex love in Viking culture, flickering in sagas, runes, insults. Carrie, a broad-shouldered reindeer herder, shrugs when asked who they love. I follow warmth. Not a problem with the gods. They say divinity shifts like weather. Loki's mare form and Odin's seer blur male. Female, sacred, sensual. Mortal love is messier. Insults like RG attack submission. Not same-sex acts, dominance, not gender matters. Sworn brothers lived, fought, were buried together. Not called lovers, but not lovers. A tailor shares a fringe fact. Female warriors Halla and Runa, always together, never married, were respected for out-drinking and out-fighting. People talk, he smirks, behind everyone's backs. Scholars debate. Was same-sex love taboo or subtly accepted? Rune stones with paired male names, beard-to-beard poems, mismatched burial goods hint at fire beneath smoke. By the fjord, Carrie speaks of loving Eivor, a boy with raven hair and a scar. He married but never stopped looking across fires. Real, sad, accepted. A chieftain's son and a traitor, confessing love at a feast, sailed east after rejection, carving their names on a stone. We chose each other. Sleep with thoughts of quiet loves, runes tossed to sea, hoping gods carry the message. Tomorrow, Christianity's tightening grip overshadows sacred freedoms. Tonight, rest by the fire, Vikings tangled, contradictory, bold, loving unnamed ways. Cold arrives early, air heavy with damp earth and iron. The village moves softly, shrines to old gods fade. The longhouse feels emptier, not in bodies but spirit. The era of wild, sacred Viking sexuality is closing. Stories of fertility rites, Midnight liaisons and shield maidens linger, but pauses grow longer, Freya's name nostalgic. The Kirkja grows, crosses multiply, rune charms vanish in a chest. Brynja sorts nettle, subdued. They want prayers, not potions. She calls love advice, virtue consultations. Salver no longer sings bold songs. Carrie heads to a mountain village where snow out talks priests. Christianity pins sex into marriage, turning sacred desires into confessed shame. A man apologizes for dreaming of another woman. God sees you, the priest says. An old skald shares a fringe fact. Outlying communities hold secret rites under moonlight, offering fruit to Freya, dancing naked at solstice. Memory, not rebellion. Scholars debate. Was Christianization conquest or evolution? Some say it unified. Others, it flattened Norse sensuality. At the fjord, a moss-covered runestone reads, "Her hands warm my winter." In a longhouse, a final toast, a stumbled love poem, draws laughter, not mockery, memory. This isn't just an end. It's sealed into the land's bones. Sleep by the fire, ghosts of wild gods around you, wondering if this bright, brutal world will remember its freedom to desire, claim, sanctify the body, kiss, glance. Dream of juniper, shared pelts, and a sea god's distant laugh.